Pitot static system. So I got two screens here. I'm going to be doing most of the demonstrations over here on the PowerPoint and using the Word document as my notes. But this is primarily for II.A applicants, so I'm going to go through this kind of fast. You guys all should know, and same with your private students that go into instrument training, but they should know how to read an altimeter and airspeed already. So you don't really have to focus on that one too much. I'm just going to focus on how these things work and the most confusing parts about the pitot static system. So we know that this comes straight out of PHAC here, this picture that we're looking at, but this is what a Cessna has. However, in our pipers, generally we have, oops, let me get rid of these X's, boom, boom, there we go. Our pipers have this pitot mass. How this pitot mass is constructed, the front hole, got colored red. The front hole is always going to be ram pressure. That's going to be your dynamic pressure that's changing. The faster you move, the more ram pressure you got. Right, in the back of your pitot mast here, you're going to have your static sources. The static line splits into two holes. We have one in the back and one on the bottom. This bottom, you can say it's a drain, right? If moisture gets in, it should drain straight out the bottom. In II.A. Juliet, we don't actually have any other drains in the aircraft, so that's kind of it for us. But that's the Piper for us. Don't be explaining the Cessna. All right, so starting off with the instruments. We have three pitot-static instruments. We have airspeed indicator, altimeter, we have vertical speed. Starting with the airspeed indicator. This one has a diaphragm in it. So we have diaphragms versus wafers. Diaphragms change in pressure. So air can go in and out, and it changes the internal pressure of that diaphragm, whereas the altimeter has a wafer where it's completely sealed. We'll come back to the altimeter though. Going back to the airspeed. So red ram pressure here is going to go directly into the diaphragm. Static pressure is going to go into the casing. So as you take off and speed up, the ram pressure here is going to increase. Static air is not going to do too much there. It's like inflating a balloon, right? This thing gets bigger. The greater this bigger the diaphragm gets, greater the airspeed. Right? It's the difference between static and dynamic pressure. Right? And when you slow down, there's less pressure inside this diaphragm, it contracts because it's less of a difference. When you come to a complete zero airspeed, right? There's no difference. It should be pretty small. Pretty simple. This is the only one that uses the ram pressure, or the ram hole. So that's kind of it with that. Moving over to the altimeter. So this one compares standard pressure inside the wafer, because it's sealed, with current static pressure. So as you climb and descend, right? Let's say climb first. As you climb, pressure is going to drop. This wafer is going to remain the same pressure inside. As the casing, because the static line is connected directly to the casing, not the wafer, the casing is going to drop in pressure. This is going to remain the same, so it's going to expand. It's just like a bag of potato chips inside an airplane. The higher you climb, generally the bigger the bag gets until it pops. As you descend, static pressure increases. Casing increases in pressure. Wafer stays the same. But because of the forces, it shrinks because it's greater forces applied on the wafer. That was pretty simple too. Most advanced one really is the vertical speed here. It is comparing, let me change my notes here. Where'd it go? There it is. All right, so this is comparing current static pressure with old static pressure. So you can see that I split the static pressure off right here in this line. This blue thing is your calibrated leak. Your calibrated leak is going to be connected to the casing over here, right? That just means that the diaphragm here is going to change pressure instantaneously as you climb and descend. The casing is going to lag behind about 6 seconds. So in a climb, your pressure, your static pressure is going to drop. So low pressure in this diaphragm. Your casing is going to lag behind, so it's relatively higher. So it's actually going to shrink this diaphragm as you climb, and then as you level off, these two equalize after 6 seconds, goes back to 0 vertical speed. As you descend, static pressure increases, so that increases in pressure right there. This is going to lag behind, leaving a lower pressure, so this is going to expand. Level off from a descent, goes back to 0, call it a day. All right, so that's how they work. They got some errors, but they're not perfect. The biggest one is going to be high to low, look up to low, right? Going from a high pressure system to a low pressure system, or a hot area to a cold area. You're going to indicate the same altitude, but you're actually going to be lower than you actually think you are. So kind of dangerous. Or low to high, clear to sky, right? Works with both temperature and pressure. Cool, that's your biggest error there. And then we have some blockages, because it's pretty easy to block these things. I'm going to start off with the ram hole blockage, so I'm just going to block that off right there. So now everything in that ram pressure cannot move. Whatever pressure you had in there previously is going to stay there. So like I said before, this airspeed is going to compare ram pressure with static pressure, right? So these two bars are going to represent that. This is your ram pressure, this is your static pressure. The greater the difference between the two, like freaking the distance here, the greater your airspeed. Hope you understand that one. Anyways, we trap all the air in the ram hole here. So this red bar is not going to move anymore. However, this green bar still can move as long as you climb and descend. So let's say you climb. As you climb, pressure decreases, right? And so you can see this distance between the two, the difference between ram and static pressure increases. Therefore, it's going to show a increase in airspeed as you climb. Whereas let's say you descend, pressure is going to increase, so this is going to rise, right? And the difference between these two are going to get smaller. So I'm going to show a lower airspeed when you descend. You could say that this is going to indicate like an altimeter, and that's exactly how an altimeter works. So for some people that works. No other instrument will be affected from the ram hole blockage, because that's the only one that's using it. To fix it, pitot heat on, and hopefully it goes away. Hopefully, who knows? All right, get rid of that. That's fine now. The worst one is going to be your, the worst one's going to be your static blockage here. I'm going to get rid of that. There we go, completely blocked. So now, go on with your airspeed again. Ram pressure is going to stay, or actually, ram pressure is going to be free to move as you increase, decrease speed. That's fine. However, wherever this is stuck at, let's say 10,000, right? It's going to stay there. So my little fish boy here, I'm going to say middle of the screen right here is 10,000. Yeah, just don't mind the fish. But anyways, he's at 10,000. Experiences a static blockage. If fish boy here is going to increase and decrease his speed, right, this is still free to move. You're going to indicate exactly the correct airspeed, assuming you stay at 10,000. You'll get some issues when you climb and descend out of 10,000 though. So let's say you climb out of 10,000, you're getting higher. Normally when these two are working perfectly, there's no blockages. If one goes up, the other one goes up. If one goes down, the other one should go down, right? But obviously you block one, so this can't move anymore. So as you climb, pressure is going to decrease. So this ram pressure is going to decrease. So the airspeed is going to indicate lower as you climb above your blocked altitude. As you descend now, pressure increases, right? So greater the difference, greater the airspeed. You're going to indicate higher than your actual airspeed as you descend. So descend. There we go. I don't think that really helped with the fish boy, but hopefully you get the picture. You can call this a reverse altimeter. All right, cool. That's your airspeed. Altimeter, if you block the static, you just trapped all the pressure right here. It's going to stay at 10,000. It's not going to change. Not going to move. Indicate exactly the altitude you got blocked at. Vertical speed. It's going to go down to 0 because these two will equalize eventually. It's going to stay at 0 until you unblock the static. If you're in a climb and you get a static blockage, it's going to go to 0, stay at 0. If you're in a descent and get a static blockage, it's going to go back to 0, stay at 0. It's not too bad. The only confusing one is the airspeed. To fix that, you're going to reach for your alternate static source according to your POH. And in the POH, it's going to say that once you pull it, you should close all your windows, vents, and turn on the heat. This is because inside the cabin, it's going to be a lower pressure. When we close the vents and the windows, we're making a closed environment. Turn on the heat, we're going to raise the amount of energy inside of that closed environment. It's kind of like chucking a water bottle in the microwave. If you microwave it long enough, it's going to explode, right? That's because you're increasing the pressure inside. So you're just raising the pressure inside. You probably heard from other lessons elsewhere that if you put on the alternate static and not do any of those procedures, that all these instruments are going to indicate slightly higher. So right as soon as you click on the alternate static, airspeed will indicate slightly higher. Altimeter, slightly higher. VSI, slight climb, then back to 0 because it equalizes. Turn on the heat, close all the windows. These should come back to slightly normal, probably still a little bit inaccurate, but a little more normal than you're used compared to what you're used to. All right, cool. Let's see if we got everything here. We got that. We got the altimeter. We got the errors. Vertical speed, we got that. Airspeed, we got that. System blockages, we got that. Cool.